My name is Rachel Monroe, and I'm 29 years old. I live in a small apartment in Portland, Oregon, with my 5-year-old daughter, Lily. People always tell me I look younger than my age, maybe because I still wear my auburn hair in a messy bun most days and prefer jeans over anything fancy. I work as a freelance graphic designer, which means some months are better than others, but we get by just fine, Lily and I. The story I'm about to tell you happened last December, during what should have been the happiest time of the year. Instead, it became one of the most painful periods of my life, and ultimately, one that changed everything between my mother and me forever. I hadn't seen my mother, Evelyn Monroe, in almost 8 months. She lives about 3 hours away in Salem, Oregon, in the same Victorian house where I grew up. It's a beautiful place, really. White picket fence, wraparound porch, and a garden that blooms magnificently in spring. But that house holds so many complicated memories for me. My relationship with my mother has always been difficult. She's 62 now, a retired high school principal who ruled her classroom with an iron fist and brought that same energy home. Don't get me wrong, she's not a bad person. She raised me mostly on her own after my father left when I was 12, but Evelyn has always had very specific ideas about how life should be lived, and I've never quite fit into her vision. When I got pregnant with Lily at 23, unmarried and still figuring out my career, my mother made her disappointment crystal clear. "This isn't how I raised you, Rachel," she said, her lips pressed into that thin line I knew so well. "You're throwing your life away." Lily's father, Marcus, wasn't ready for parenthood and disappeared before she was even born. I won't lie, those early years were tough. I was working part-time jobs, trying to finish my design degree, and raising a baby mostly alone. My mother helped sometimes, but always with this air of resignation, like she was cleaning up a mess I'd made. But here's the thing about having a child. It changes you in ways you never expect. Lily became my whole world. She's this bright, curious little girl with wild blonde curls and the biggest blue eyes you've ever seen. She asks a million questions a day, loves to paint, usually on things she shouldn't, and has this infectious laugh that makes everyone around her smile. She's the best thing I've ever done, hands down. As December approached last year, I found myself missing family traditions. Lily had been asking about Christmas at Grandma's house. She'd heard other kids at daycare talking about big family gatherings, and I could see the longing in her eyes. Despite everything, I wanted her to have those memories, so I called my mother. "Mom, I was wondering if Lily and I could come stay for a few days around Christmas. She's old enough now to really enjoy the holidays, and I thought—" "Of course," my mother interrupted, but her tone was measured, careful. "You're always welcome here, Rachel. You know that." There was something in the way she said, "you," that should have been my first warning sign, but I was so focused on giving Lily a magical Christmas that I pushed aside my doubts. The drive from Portland to Salem on December 22nd was beautiful. The Oregon countryside was dusted with frost, and Lily pressed her nose against the window, pointing out every barn and cow along the way. She was wearing her favorite red sweater, the one with a reindeer on the front that she'd picked out herself, and she'd been talking nonstop about meeting Grandma Evelyn properly. See, Lily had only met my mother a handful of times, and always briefly. My mother would come to Portland maybe twice a year, stay for a few hours, bring a practical gift like clothes or books, and leave. She was polite to Lily, but distant. I'd always told myself it was just my mother's way. She wasn't the warm, cookie-baking grandmother type, but I hoped that spending real time together might change things. When we pulled into the familiar driveway, I felt that familiar knot in my stomach that always appeared when I came home. The house looked exactly the same, perfectly maintained, every Christmas decoration placed with precision. My mother must have heard the car because she appeared on the porch before we'd even gotten out. Evelyn Monroe is a striking woman, even at 62. Her silver hair is always perfectly styled, and she dresses like she's heading to a board meeting even when she's just gardening. That day, she wore a cream-colored sweater and dark slacks, not a wrinkle in sight. "Rachel," she said, giving me a brief hug. Then she looked down at Lily, who was hiding behind my legs, suddenly shy. "And this must be Lily," my mother said. Her voice was kind enough, but there was something formal about it, like she was greeting a stranger's child. "Say hello to Grandma, sweetheart," I encouraged, giving Lily's hand a squeeze. "Hi," Lily whispered, peeking out from behind me. "Hello, dear," my mother replied. "Well, come inside. It's cold out here." We gathered our bags and headed into the house. Everything was immaculate, as always. The Christmas tree stood in the front window, decorated with the same ornaments I remembered from childhood. Elegant glass balls in gold and deep red, everything perfectly coordinated. It was beautiful, but somehow cold. "I've put you in your old room," my mother told me as we climbed the stairs. "And I set up the guest room for Lily." "The guest room. Not your room, or the room where you'll sleep, but the guest room. Like Lily was some distant relative visiting for the weekend. The guest room was nice enough, a single bed with crisp white linens, a small desk, and windows overlooking the back garden. But it felt sterile, impersonal. Lily looked around with wide eyes, and I could see her excitement dimming slightly. "Can I put up my Christmas drawings?" she asked hopefully, pulling out a folder of artwork she'd brought to show her grandmother. "Oh, I don't think we need to hang things on the walls, dear," my mother said quickly. "These walls were just repainted." I felt a flash of irritation. "Mom, they're just drawings. We can use tape." "It's fine, Rachel. She can keep them in the folder." That night at dinner, the dynamic became even clearer. My mother had prepared a lovely meal, roast chicken, vegetables, all beautifully presented. But throughout dinner, she directed almost all her conversation toward me, as if Lily wasn't even there. "How's work going? Are you still doing that freelance thing?" "Yes, Mom, it's going well. I actually just landed a contract with—" "Grandma," Lily interrupted politely. "My mommy makes really pretty pictures on her computer." My mother glanced at her briefly. "That's nice, dear." Then, back to me. "Have you given any thought to finding something more stable, something with benefits?" I watched Lily's face fall as she realized she was being dismissed. She went back to picking at her food, the enthusiasm that had carried her through the day slowly fading. After dinner, I helped my mother clean up while Lily played quietly in the living room. I was washing dishes when my mother said something that made my blood run cold. "Rachel, I need you to understand something about this visit." I looked up from the plate I was scrubbing. "What do you mean?" My mother dried her hands carefully on a dish towel, not meeting my eyes. "This is my home. I've worked hard to maintain a certain atmosphere here, a sense of order." "Okay," I said slowly, not sure where this was going. "Lily seems like a sweet child, but she's essentially a guest here. I hope you'll help her understand that there are certain expectations." The plate slipped from my hands and clattered into the sink. "A guest? Mom, she's your granddaughter. She's a child I barely know," my mother said firmly. "I've built my life a certain way, Rachel. I can't have that disrupted just because you've decided to visit." I stared at her, feeling like I'd been slapped. "What exactly are you saying?" "I'm saying that this house has rules. Lily needs to understand that she can't just touch things or rearrange things or expect special treatment. She's here because you're here, but this isn't her home." The words hung in the air between us like ice. I felt anger rising in my chest, but I tried to keep my voice level. "She's 5 years old, Mom. She's not here to disrupt your life. She just wants to spend Christmas with her grandmother, and she can do that, but within appropriate boundaries." That night, after I'd tucked Lily into the sterile guest room, I lay in my childhood bed staring at the ceiling. The house was silent around me, but my mind was racing. I kept thinking about the way my mother had looked at Lily, or rather, the way she hadn't looked at her, like she was an inconvenience, a disruption to be managed rather than a grandchild to be loved. I thought about my own childhood, how my mother had always been more concerned with appearances than emotions, more focused on achievement than affection. But I'd hoped, foolishly, maybe, that having a grandchild might soften her somehow. Around midnight, I heard a soft sound from the guest room. I crept down the hall and found Lily sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face. "What's wrong, baby?" I whispered, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I don't think Grandma likes me very much," she said in a small voice. My heart broke into 1,000 pieces. I pulled her into my arms, feeling her small body shake with quiet sobs. "Oh, sweetheart, that's not true. Grandma she's not used to having children around. Did I do something wrong?" "No, baby. You didn't do anything wrong. Not one thing." But as I held my daughter in that cold guest room, I realized that this visit was already a mistake. The Christmas magic I'd hoped to create was turning into something else entirely. A lesson in rejection that no 5-year-old should have to learn. I should have packed our bags and left that night, but it was late, and Lily had finally fallen back asleep, and I told myself that maybe tomorrow would be better. Maybe my mother just needed time to warm up. I was so very wrong. The next morning was December 23rd, and I woke up hoping that maybe I'd been too sensitive the night before. Maybe my mother just needed time to adjust to having us there. The smell of coffee and bacon drifted up from the kitchen, and for a moment, it felt like old times. I found Lily already awake, sitting by her window and drawing in her sketchbook. She looked up when I came in, and I was relieved to see her usual bright smile. "Look, Mommy, I drew Grandma's house," she said, holding up a picture of our Victorian home complete with the wraparound porch and Christmas decorations. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. Should we go show Grandma?" Lily nodded eagerly, and we headed downstairs together. My mother was in the kitchen, dressed impeccably as always in a navy blue blouse and pressed khakis. She'd set the table for breakfast with her good china, something she'd never done just for me. "Good morning," she said pleasantly. "I made pancakes." "Pancakes!" Lily exclaimed, climbing into her chair. "These look so good, Grandma." My mother smiled tightly. "They're from a mix. Nothing fancy." As we ate, Lily chattered about her drawing, her excitement over Christmas, and asked my mother dozens of questions about the house, the neighborhood, everything. My mother answered politely but briefly, like she was responding to a survey rather than having a conversation with her granddaughter. "Grandma, do you have Christmas stockings?" Lily asked, syrup smeared across her cheek. "I used to hang one for your mother when she was young," my mother replied, glancing at me. "But I stopped that tradition years ago." I felt a pang of disappointment. Growing up, Christmas morning always started with stockings, and I'd been looking forward to sharing that with Lily. "Oh," Lily said quietly. "Mommy and I have stockings at home. Mine has a puppy on it." "That's nice, dear." The conversation died there, and we finished breakfast in uncomfortable silence. After we cleaned up, my mother announced she had errands to run in town. "You're welcome to stay here, of course. Maybe Lily would like to rest or keep herself occupied." The way she said it made it clear that we weren't invited along. This was my childhood all over again, my mother finding reasons to exclude me from normal activities, making me feel like I was in the way of her perfectly ordered life. "Actually, I think we'll come with you," I said. "Lily would love to see the town." My mother's lips pressed into that familiar thin line. "I'm just running boring errands, Rachel." Insurance office, bank, pharmacy. It's hardly entertainment for a child. She doesn't mind. "Do you, Lily?" Lily shook her head enthusiastically. "I love going places with Mommy." "Very well," my mother said, but her tone suggested it was anything but well. The trip to town was a disaster. My mother drove her pristine white sedan like she was transporting fragile cargo, constantly glancing in the rearview mirror with expressions of worry whenever Lily so much as shifted in her booster seat. "Please don't touch the windows, dear," she said, when Lily pressed her face against the glass to look at Christmas decorations. They were just cleaned. At the bank, Lily asked if she could sit in the chairs while we waited in line. "Those chairs are for customers conducting business," my mother said sharply. "She is a customer," I said. "She's with us. Rachel, please don't make a scene." But I wasn't making a scene. I was just trying to let my 5-year-old daughter sit down. The elderly man behind us in line overheard and smiled at Lily. "What a pretty little girl," he said kindly. "Are you visiting your grandmother for Christmas?" Lily beamed. "Yes. We're staying at her house and it's really pretty and she made us pancakes." The man chuckled. "How wonderful. I bet your grandmother is thrilled to have you." I watched my mother's face during this exchange. Instead of the pride or warmth you'd expect from a grandmother, she looked almost embarrassed, like this friendly stranger was forcing her into a role she didn't want to play. "Yes, well, we should move along," she said when it was our turn at the teller window. The pharmacy was worse. While my mother spoke with the pharmacist about her medications, Lily wandered over to look at the small toy section. She wasn't touching anything, just looking at the stuffed animals and coloring books. "Lily, come away from there," my mother called sharply. "You're not here to shop." Several people turned to look, and I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment. "Mom, she's just looking. Children who touch things in stores are expected to buy them," my mother said loudly enough for half the pharmacy to hear. "I'm sure other customers don't want fingerprints all over the merchandise." Lily's face crumpled, and she hurried back to my side. I wanted to disappear into the floor. My mother was treating my daughter like she was some kind of delinquent, and doing it in public. That afternoon, things got even worse. My mother's neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, stopped by with a plate of Christmas cookies. Mrs. Henderson was a sweet woman in her 70s, who had lived next door for as long as I could remember. "Rachel, how lovely to see you," she said warmly when I answered the door. "And this must be your little girl." "This is Lily," I said, putting my hand on my daughter's shoulder. "What a sweetheart. She looks just like you did at that age," Mrs. Henderson said. "Evelyn, you must be so proud of your granddaughter." My mother appeared behind us, accepting the cookies with polite thanks. "Yes, well, they're just visiting for a few days." "Just visiting?" Mrs. Henderson looked confused. "But surely you'll want them to stay longer. The holidays are for family." "Of course," my mother said, but her smile didn't reach her eyes, though we all have our own lives to get back to. Mrs. Henderson seemed to pick up on the strange tension because she didn't stay long after that, but before she left, she knelt down to Lily's level. "You have a very special grandmother, little one," she said gently. "I hope you have a wonderful Christmas together." After she left, my mother was unusually quiet. She busied herself putting the cookies away, arranging them in a container with unnecessary precision. "That was awkward," I said finally. "What was awkward?" "The way you acted like we were strangers just passing through." My mother stopped what she was doing and looked at me with that cool, measured expression I knew so well. "I was being polite, Rachel. I don't see the need to burden the neighbors with family details." "Family details? We're your daughter and granddaughter, not some shameful secret. Don't be dramatic." But I was done pretending this was normal. "Mom, what is this really about? Why are you treating Lily like she doesn't belong here?" My mother set down the cookie container and turned to face me fully. "Because she doesn't, Rachel. Not really." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What did you just say?" "You chose to have a child without considering the consequences. You chose to raise her without a father, without stability, without the kind of life that prepares children for the real world. Those were your choices, not mine." I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. "So, you're punishing her for my choices." "I'm not punishing anyone. I'm simply being realistic about my role here. I'm 62 years old, Rachel. I've raised my child. I've built my life. I can't pretend to be something I'm not just to make you feel better about your decisions." "What about what would make her feel better? She's 5 years old, and she just wants her grandmother to love her." "Love isn't something you can force, Rachel. And frankly, building false expectations isn't fair to any of us." I stared at my mother, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time in my life. This wasn't about Lily being difficult or disruptive. This was about my mother's inability to accept that her life hadn't gone according to her perfect plan, and her decision to punish both of us for it. "Where is Lily?" I asked suddenly, realizing we'd been having this conversation in the kitchen while my daughter was somewhere else in the house. "I believe she went upstairs." I found Lily in the guest room, sitting on the floor with her back against the bed. She had her sketchbook open, but she wasn't drawing. She was just staring out the window at the garden below. "Hey, baby," I said softly, sitting down beside her. "What are you thinking about?" "I don't think Grandma wants us here," she said without looking at me. My heart shattered. "Why do you say that?" "She told the nice lady we were just visiting, like we're not really family. And she doesn't want me to touch anything, or sit anywhere, or look at anything." Lily's voice was matter-of-fact, but I could hear the hurt underneath. "And at the store, she was mad at me for looking at the toys." "I wasn't going to take anything, Mommy. I just wanted to see the teddy bear because it looked soft." I pulled her into my lap, feeling tears prick at my eyes. "You didn't do anything wrong, sweetheart. Not one single thing. Then why doesn't she like me?" It was the question I'd been dreading, because I didn't have a good answer. How do you explain to a 5-year-old that some people are incapable of unconditional love? How do you tell your child that their grandmother sees them as a burden rather than a blessing? "Sometimes grown-ups have trouble showing their feelings," I said carefully. "It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Do you think she'll like me better if I'm really, really good?" And there it was, the heartbreaking hope of a child who thinks love is something you have to earn. I'd felt that way my entire childhood, always trying to be perfect enough to deserve my mother's approval, never quite succeeding. "Lily, look at me," I said, turning her face toward mine. "You are perfect exactly the way you are. You don't need to be better for anyone. The people who love you will love you no matter what, and the people who don't, well, that's their loss." She nodded solemnly, but I could see she didn't really understand. How could she? She'd never encountered this kind of conditional, grudging acceptance disguised as family obligation. That evening, my mother made dinner again. Another perfectly prepared meal served on the good china. But the atmosphere was even more strained than the night before. Lily barely spoke, and when she did, my mother's responses were perfunctory at best. "Can I help set the table tomorrow?" Lily asked hopefully. "That won't be necessary," my mother replied. "I have my own system. What about Christmas cookies? Mommy and I usually make them together. I don't typically bake cookies. Too much mess." I watched my daughter's enthusiasm deflate a little more with each dismissal. This wasn't the magical Christmas experience I'd hoped to give her. This was something else entirely, a lesson in rejection that no child should have to learn. After dinner, I called my best friend Emma from Portland while Lily was taking a bath. "How's the family reunion going?" Emma asked cheerfully. "It's a disaster, Em. My mother is treating Lily like she's some kind of inconvenience she has to tolerate." "What do you mean?" I told her about the past 2 days. The guest room, the errands, the constant criticism and dismissal. Emma listened in growing disbelief. "Rachel, that's horrible. Poor Lily. How is she handling it? She thinks it's her fault. She keeps asking if Grandma will like her better if she's really, really good. Oh, honey, you can't let this continue. You need to protect her. I know. I keep hoping my mother will come around. That maybe if we stay a little longer, she'll see how amazing Lily is. And what if she doesn't? How much damage are you willing to let her do while you wait for a miracle?" Emma's words stayed with me long after we hung up. That night, as I lay in my childhood bed, listening to the old house creak around me, I realized she was right. I was so desperate for my mother's approval, so hungry for the family connection I'd never really had, that I was willing to sacrifice my daughter's emotional well-being for it. But this wasn't about me anymore. It was about Lily and what she deserved, which was nothing less than unconditional love and acceptance. If my mother couldn't provide that, then it was my job to remove Lily from the situation before any more damage was done. The only question was whether I had the courage to actually do it. December 24th, Christmas Eve. I woke up with a heavy heart and a decision weighing on my mind. Today was supposed to be magical for Lily, but instead, I was planning our escape. I found my mother in the kitchen early, preparing what looked like an elaborate Christmas Eve dinner. The dining room table was set with her finest china, crystal glasses, and cloth napkins. It was beautiful, but it felt more like a museum display than a family gathering. "This looks lovely, Mom," I said, pouring myself coffee. "I've invited the Andersons over," she said, without looking up from her prep work. "You remember them? Harold and Margaret from church. They'll be joining us for dinner." My stomach dropped. The Andersons were my mother's closest friends, a refined elderly couple who'd always made me feel like I was being evaluated whenever they visited. I could only imagine how they'd react to Lily. "You didn't mention having guests," I said carefully. "I thought it would be nice to have some adult conversation for Christmas Eve," my mother replied. "Children are welcome to eat in the kitchen if they prefer." There it was, the final insult. My 5-year-old daughter was being relegated to eating alone in the kitchen, while the adults enjoyed Christmas Eve dinner. "Mom, Lily is family. She belongs at the dinner table with everyone else. Rachel, please don't make this difficult. The Andersons are sophisticated people. They're not accustomed to energetic children during formal meals." "Energetic?" "She's 5 years old and she's been nothing but polite since we arrived." My mother finally stopped her preparations and looked at me with that cold, measuring stare. "She's been tolerable, yes, but tonight is important to me. I won't have it disrupted." The word tolerable hit me like a slap. My beautiful, bright, loving daughter was being described as barely tolerable by her own grandmother. "You know what, Mom? You're right. Tonight is important. It's Christmas Eve, and Lily deserves to spend it somewhere she's actually wanted." I turned and walked upstairs, my hands shaking with anger and determination. I found Lily in her room, already dressed in the special Christmas dress we'd picked out together, a red velvet dress with a white collar that made her look like an angel. "Mommy, do I look pretty for Christmas Eve dinner?" she asked, spinning around to show me. "You look absolutely beautiful, sweetheart. But I have an idea. How would you like to go home and have our own special Christmas Eve?" Her face lit up with hope, then fell with disappointment. "Did I do something wrong again?" "No, baby. You've been perfect. I just think we'd have more fun at home, just the two of us. We could make hot chocolate and watch Christmas movies and maybe even open one present early. Really, we can go home." The relief in her voice broke my heart. She wanted to leave as much as I did. "Really? Let's pack our things. It didn't take long to gather our belongings. We'd barely unpacked anyway, as if some part of me had known this wasn't going to work out. As I zipped up our suitcase, Lily sat on the bed watching me. "Mommy, why doesn't Grandma love us?" I stopped packing and sat down beside her. "Oh, sweetheart, Grandma does love us, in her own way. But sometimes people have trouble showing love the way other people need to receive it. Is it because I don't have a daddy?" The question gutted me. How had she picked up on that thread? "No, Lily. Having or not having a daddy has nothing to do with how lovable you are. You are loved so much. By me, by your teachers, by our neighbors, by Emma and her family. We have so many people who think you're amazing. But not Grandma." I pulled her close. "Grandma has forgotten how to be happy, I think. That's not your fault, and it's not your job to fix it." We carried our bags downstairs quietly. My mother was still in the kitchen, and I could hear her on the phone with someone, probably finalizing details for her perfect dinner party. I left our bags by the front door and went to find her. She was hanging up as I entered the kitchen. "We're leaving," I said simply. She turned around, looking genuinely surprised. "I'm leaving? What do you mean?" "I mean we're going home. Right now. But it's Christmas Eve, and dinner. Will be lovely, I'm sure. Enjoy it with the Andersons." My mother stared at me for a long moment. "Rachel, you're being ridiculous. You can't just leave because you didn't get your way about the seating arrangement. This isn't about seating arrangements, Mom. It's about the fact that you've made it crystal clear that we're not welcome here. That Lily is just an inconvenience you're tolerating until we leave. I never said—" "You called her tolerable. You put her in the guest room like she's a stranger. You've criticized everything she does, dismissed everything she says, and made her feel like she has to earn the right to exist in your presence." My voice was rising, but I didn't care. "Well, she's 5 years old, and she thinks there's something wrong with her because her own grandmother can't show her basic kindness." My mother's face had gone pale. "You're overreacting." "Am I? Yesterday she asked me if you'd like her better if she was really, really good. Today she asked if it's because she doesn't have a daddy." You've managed to make my confident, happy little girl question her own worth in just 3 days. I'm simply trying to maintain appropriate boundaries. With a 5-year-old? What boundaries could you possibly need with a 5-year-old who just wants her grandmother's attention? My mother opened her mouth to respond, but no words came. For the first time since we'd arrived, she looked uncertain. "You know what the saddest part is?" I continued. "You're missing out on the most amazing little person. Lily is funny and creative and kind. She sees magic in everything. She would have loved you unconditionally if you'd given her even the smallest chance. But instead, you decided she was a burden before you even got to know her." I heard the front door open and Lily's voice calling, "Mommy, the car is unlocked. I have to go," I said. "Maybe someday you'll realize what you lost here." I turned to leave, but my mother's voice stopped me. "Rachel, wait." I looked back at her. For a moment, she looked smaller somehow, older. I don't know how to do this," she said quietly. "I raised you alone, and I did the best I could, but I don't know how to be a grandmother. I don't know how to be around children anymore. You start by being kind," I said. "You start by seeing her as a gift instead of a problem. But it's too late for this visit. The damage is already done. Please don't go. Not like this. Then give me one good reason why we should stay. One thing you've done since we arrived that would make Lily feel welcome and loved." The silence stretched between us. My mother looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "That's what I thought," I said sadly. "Goodbye, Mom. I hope your dinner party is everything you wanted it to be." I found Lily waiting by the car, her little suitcase in her hand. She looked so small standing there in her Christmas dress, but there was relief on her face that made my decision feel absolutely right. "Are we really going home, Mommy?" "We really are, baby. Buckle up." As I started the car, I glanced back at the house. My mother stood at the front window, watching us leave. For just a moment, I thought I saw regret on her face, but then she stepped back into the shadows. The drive home was completely different from the trip there. Lily chattered happily about all the things we'd do when we got home, about how we'd decorate our own tree better, about how we'd make the best Christmas cookies ever. The closer we got to Portland, the lighter I felt. We stopped at a grocery store about an hour outside the city to pick up ingredients for Christmas Eve dinner and some last-minute stocking stuffers. As we walked through the aisles together, Lily skipping beside me and pointing out all her favorite foods, I realized something important. We didn't need my mother's approval to be a family. We didn't need her perfectly set table or her grudging tolerance. We had each other, and that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. When we finally pulled into our apartment complex parking lot as the sun was setting, Lily let out a happy sigh. I love our home, Mommy. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. That evening, we made spaghetti and meatballs for dinner and ate it while watching The Polar Express. We built a blanket fort in the living room and told stories about magical Christmases. We made hot chocolate with extra marshmallows and talked about all the things we were grateful for. As I tucked Lily into her own bed, her real bed, in her room full of her drawings and stuffed animals and all the things that made it hers, she looked up at me with those big blue eyes. Mommy, I'm glad we came home. Are you disappointed we didn't stay for Christmas at Grandma's? She thought about it seriously. A little bit, but I like our Christmas better. We laugh more here, and she was right. We did laugh more. We laughed until our sides hurt, making up silly songs and dancing around the living room. The apartment had never felt more like home than it did that night. Later, after Lily was asleep, I sat in my little kitchen with a cup of tea and called Emma to tell her we were home. I'm so proud of you, she said when I finished the story. That took real courage. I should have done it sooner. I should never have put Lily through that. You were hoping for something better. That's not wrong, Rachel. But you did the right thing when you saw it wasn't going to happen. I just feel so sad, you know? Not for me, but for my mom. She's choosing to be alone rather than learning to love, and she doesn't even see it. Some people are so afraid of being hurt that they hurt others first, Emma said gently, but that's her choice to make. Your job is to protect Lily, and you did that. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet apartment and thought about everything that had happened. Part of me wondered if I'd been too harsh, if I should have tried harder to make things work. But then I remembered the look on Lily's face when she asked if she'd done something wrong, and I knew I'd made the right choice. My daughter deserved to grow up knowing she was wanted, loved, and cherished exactly as she was. If my mother couldn't provide that, then it was my responsibility to remove us from the situation. As I finally headed to bed, I felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. For the first time in days, I wasn't walking on eggshells or trying to manage someone else's emotions. I wasn't worried about Lily saying the wrong thing or touching something she shouldn't. We were home, where we belonged, where we were wanted. And tomorrow would be Christmas. Our Christmas. Full of laughter and love and all the magical chaos that comes with a 5-year-old's excitement. I had no idea that my mother was sitting in her perfectly clean house at that very moment, eating Christmas Eve dinner alone because the Andersons had called to cancel at the last minute. I had no idea that she was staring at the empty chair where Lily should have been sitting, finally understanding what she had lost. I had no idea that the real lesson was just beginning. Christmas morning in our little Portland apartment was everything I'd dreamed it could be. Lily woke me up at 6 a.m., bouncing on my bed with excitement that was absolutely infectious. Mommy, Santa came. There are presents under our tree. I'd stayed up until nearly 2 in the morning, wrapping the gifts I'd brought back from Salem, plus a few extra things I'd picked up at the store. Our little artificial tree looked perfect to me, decorated with Lily's handmade ornaments and twinkling lights that cast a warm glow over our cozy living room. Lily tore through her presents with the pure joy that only a 5-year-old can muster. Art supplies, books, a stuffed elephant she immediately named Peanut, and the wooden dollhouse I'd been saving for months to buy her. With each gift, she squealed with delight and hugged me so tight I thought my heart might burst. This is the best Christmas ever, she declared, already arranging tiny furniture in the dollhouse. And you know what? It really was. We made pancakes shaped like snowmen for breakfast, watched Christmas movies in our pajamas until noon, and spent the afternoon building elaborate dollhouse scenes while Christmas music played in the background. When Emma called to check on us, I could honestly tell her we were having a wonderful day. See, you didn't need your mother's perfect dining room to make Christmas magical, Emma said. You're right. Lily's been laughing all day. I think she's happier here than she would have been there. But even as I said it, I felt a nagging worry about my mother. Was she spending Christmas alone? Had the Andersons actually come for dinner? Or had I left her completely by herself on Christmas Eve? I pushed the thoughts away. I'd made the right choice for my daughter, and that had to be enough. 3 days after Christmas, my phone rang. It was Mrs. Henderson, my mother's neighbor. Rachel, dear, I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from your mother's address book. Of course not. Mrs. Henderson, is everything okay? Well, I'm a bit worried about your mother. Actually, I haven't seen her since before Christmas, and her newspapers are piling up on the porch. I knocked yesterday, but she didn't answer. Her car is in the driveway, so I know she's home. My stomach clenched with concern. Have you tried calling her? Several times. It goes straight to voicemail. I thought perhaps you might know if she's feeling unwell or if she's gone to stay with family. I hesitated. Should I tell Mrs. Henderson that we'd left on Christmas Eve? That my mother had chosen her perfect dinner party over her granddaughter? We left earlier than planned, I said carefully. I haven't spoken to her since Christmas Eve. Oh dear. Well, perhaps she's just feeling under the weather, but I do worry about her being alone in that big house. After Mrs. Henderson hung up, I couldn't shake my unease. My mother was many things: cold, critical, impossibly rigid. But she wasn't the type to let newspapers pile up or ignore her phone. Something was wrong. I called her number. Straight to voicemail. I tried again an hour later. Same thing. By evening, I was genuinely worried. I called Mrs. Henderson back. I'm going to drive down tomorrow, I told her, just to check on her. Oh, that would be wonderful, dear. I'll keep an eye out for you. I arranged for Lily to spend the day with Emma, telling her I needed to check on my mother without going into all the details. The 3-hour drive to Salem felt endless, my mind racing with possibilities. Had my mother fallen? Was she sick? Was this somehow connected to our argument on Christmas Eve? When I pulled into the familiar driveway, I immediately saw what Mrs. Henderson meant. 3 days' worth of newspapers lay scattered on the porch, and the Christmas decorations looked somehow forlorn in the gray December light. My mother's white sedan sat in exactly the same spot where it had been when we left. I knocked on the front door. No answer. Mom? I called. It's Rachel. Are you okay? Still nothing. I used my old key. My mother had never asked for it back, and let myself in. The house was eerily quiet, and something felt off immediately. The Christmas dinner dishes were still on the dining room table, untouched food now covered with plastic wrap. It looked like a meal prepared for guests who never came. Mom? I called again. Making my way through the house, I found her in the living room, sitting in her favorite armchair, staring out the front window. She was still in her Christmas Eve outfit, the elegant cream sweater and dark slacks, though they were wrinkled now, like she'd slept in them. Mom, she turned slowly, and I was shocked by what I saw. Her usually perfect hair was disheveled, her makeup was smeared, and her eyes were red-rimmed and hollow. Rachel, she said, as if she wasn't sure I was real. I'm here. Mrs. Henderson called. She was worried about you. Are you sick? My mother looked at me for a long moment, then back out the window. They didn't come, she said quietly. Who didn't come? The Andersons. Harold called an hour after you left. Margaret had come down with a stomach bug. They couldn't make it for dinner. I looked back at the dining room, understanding dawning. You ate Christmas Eve dinner alone. I sat at that table for 2 hours, she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. I kept thinking you might come back, that maybe you were just making a point, and you'd return for dinner. My heart clenched with an emotion I couldn't quite name. Mom, I made enough food for 6 people. The ham, the stuffing, the potatoes, all of it. And I sat there alone, eating off china plates while looking at empty chairs. She turned to face me fully, and I saw something in her expression I'd never seen before. Genuine remorse. I kept hearing Lily's voice. She said, all the questions she asked, all the excitement in her words. I kept thinking about how she wanted to help set the table, how she asked about Christmas stockings and cookies, and I realized she trailed off, her voice breaking. Realized what, Mom? I realized I turned away my own granddaughter on Christmas Eve. I chose empty chairs and perfect place settings over having family at my table. The confession hung in the air between us. I sat down on the couch across from her, not sure what to say. I haven't eaten since Christmas Eve, she continued. I haven't showered or changed clothes or even moved much from this chair. I just keep thinking about the look on Lily's face when I told her she couldn't sit at the grown-up table. Mom, when was the last time you had some water or something to eat? She waved a dismissive hand. I'm not hungry, but I could see that she was dehydrated and probably weak. Whatever had happened to her over the past few days, she wasn't taking care of herself. I went to the kitchen and found some crackers and juice, then came back and sat beside her chair. Here, you need to eat something. She took a small sip of juice, and I noticed her hands were shaking slightly. Rachel, I need to tell you something, she said after a few minutes, about why I've been the way I've been. I waited, sensing this was important. When your father left, she began slowly, I was terrified. I had a 12-year-old daughter, a mortgage, and a job that barely paid the bills. I felt like I was drowning every single day. This was more than my mother had ever told me about that time period. I decided that the only way to survive was to control everything I could control. The house, our schedule, our appearance, our behavior. If everything was perfect, maybe nothing else could go wrong. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. I turned myself into a fortress, Rachel, and I raised you inside those walls. I thought I was protecting you, but I was really just protecting myself from being hurt again. Mom, when you got pregnant with Lily, it terrified me. Not because I disapproved, but because I saw you making choices that felt risky, choices that could lead to the same kind of pain I'd experienced. I wanted to protect you from that, but I didn't know how except to pull away. She reached for my hand, her fingers cold and thin. And when you brought Lily here, I saw this beautiful, open, trusting little girl, and I panicked. I didn't know how to let her in without risking my heart, so I kept her at a distance, told myself she was just visiting, just temporary. The tears were flowing freely now. But she's not temporary, is she? She's my granddaughter, and I've missed 3 years of her life because I was too afraid to love her. I felt my own eyes filling with tears. Mom, it's not too late, isn't it? Look what I did to her. Look what I put you both through. She's 5 years old. Children forgive easily when they feel loved. My mother was quiet for a long moment. Does she hate me? No, I said honestly. She's confused and hurt, but she doesn't hate you. On the drive home, she said she was sad that Grandma doesn't know how to be happy. A sob escaped my mother's throat. She said that? She did. She has such a big heart, Mom. She would love you so much if you let her. We sat in silence for a while, both of us crying quietly. Finally, my mother spoke again. I want to try, she said. I want to learn how to be the grandmother she deserves. But I don't know how. I don't know where to start. You start by taking a shower and getting some food in you, I said practically. And then we figure out the rest together. My mother looked at me with something like hope in her eyes. Would you consider bringing Lily back? Maybe for New Year's? I promise it would be different. I hesitated. The protective mother in me wanted to say no, to keep Lily safe from any more disappointment. But the daughter in me, the one who had always wanted a real relationship with her mother, felt a spark of possibility. And let's see how you're feeling in a few days, I said. This is going to take time, Mom. Trust has to be rebuilt. I understand. I spent the rest of the day taking care of my mother, making sure she ate, helping her clean up the Christmas dishes, bringing in the newspapers. It felt strange, this reversal of roles, but also somehow healing. As I prepared to drive back to Portland that evening, my mother walked me to the car. Rachel, she said as I opened the driver's door, I'm sorry for all of it, for the way I raised you, for the way I treated Lily, for choosing fear over love. I'm so very sorry. It was the first real apology I'd ever gotten from her, and it meant everything. I know, Mom, and I'm sorry too, for leaving the way we did, for not trying to understand what was behind your behavior. You were protecting your daughter. That's what good mothers do. As I drove home through the dark Oregon countryside, I felt something shifting inside me. For the first time in my life, I'd seen my mother as a real person with real fears and vulnerabilities, rather than just the critical, distant figure who had shaped my childhood. I didn't know if she could really change. I didn't know if she could learn to love openly and warmly. But for the first time, I had hoped that maybe we could build something new together, something that honored both Lily's need for unconditional love and my mother's need for security. When I got home, Lily was already asleep, but Emma waited up to hear how things had gone. So, what happens now? She asked after I told her everything. I don't know, I said honestly, but maybe that's okay. Maybe we don't need to have it all figured out right away. 3 days later, a package arrived at our apartment. Inside was a beautiful hand-knitted stocking with Lily's name embroidered in gold thread, along with a note in my mother's careful handwriting. For Lily's stocking next Christmas, if you'll have me, I'd like to learn how to fill it properly. Love, Grandma Evelyn. Lily held the stocking reverently, tracing the letters of her name with her finger. It's really pretty, Mommy. Do you think Grandma made it herself? I think she did, sweetheart. Can we call her and say thank you? I looked at my daughter's hopeful face and felt that familiar surge of protective love, but this time, it was tempered with something new. The possibility that maybe, just maybe, love could win over fear. Yes, baby, I think we can do that. That phone call with my mother was tentative, awkward, but it was a start. Lily spoke to her for maybe 5 minutes, thanking her for the stocking and telling her about the dollhouse Santa had brought. My mother's voice was different, softer, more careful, as she listened to every word my daughter said. "I love the way you wrote my name," Lily told her. "It's so fancy." "I'm glad you like it, sweetheart," my mother replied, and I could hear emotion in her voice. I practiced writing it many times to make sure it was perfect. After we hung up, I found myself cautiously optimistic. Maybe people could change. Maybe it wasn't too late for my mother to learn how to love openly. But I was still protective. When my mother called a week later to ask if we'd consider visiting for New Year's Eve, I hesitated. "Mom, I need you to understand something. If we come, things have to be different. Really different." "I know, Rachel. I've been thinking about this constantly. I want to do better." "It's not about wanting, Mom. Lily can't handle another rejection. If you're not completely sure you're ready to welcome her as your granddaughter, really welcome her, then we shouldn't come." There was a long pause. "I'm ready," she said finally. "Or at least, I'm ready to try. And I understand that trying isn't enough. I have to succeed." Something in her voice convinced me. We agreed to come for a 2-day visit, with the understanding that if things went badly, we'd leave immediately. The week before New Year's, my mother called every evening, not to talk to me, to talk to Lily. She asked about her day, her dollhouse, her drawings. She listened to stories about daycare and asked follow-up questions. Slowly, carefully, she was building a relationship with her granddaughter. "Grandma wants to know if I like puzzles," Lily told me after one of these calls. "I told her I love them, but they're really hard." "What did she say?" "She said she has some puzzles at her house that might be perfect for me, and she asked if I wanted to help her make cookies for New Year's Eve." I felt a flutter of hope. These were the conversations I'd dreamed my mother might have with Lily. When December 30th arrived, I was nervous but cautiously excited. The drive to Salem felt different this time, not charged with hope and dread, but with careful possibility. When we pulled into the driveway, my mother was waiting on the porch, but this time, she came down the steps to meet us at the car. "Lily!" she said warmly, crouching down to my daughter's level as we got out. "I'm so happy you're here." Lily beamed at her. "Hi, Grandma. I brought you a picture I drew. I would love to see it," my mother said, accepting the carefully folded paper. "Should we go inside and you can tell me all about it?" As we walked toward the house, I noticed changes immediately. There were child safety latches on the kitchen cabinets. A step stool sat by the bathroom sink. Most tellingly, the guest room had been completely transformed. Gone was the sterile, impersonal space. In its place was a room clearly designed for a little girl. The walls had been painted a soft lavender, and there were cheerful curtains with butterflies. A small bookshelf held picture books, and a toy chest sat in one corner. But most importantly, the walls were covered with frames, empty frames, waiting to be filled. "This is for your artwork," my mother told Lily. "I thought you might like to put up some of your drawings while you're here." Lily's eyes went wide. "Really? I can put my pictures on the wall." "As many as you want, sweetheart. This is your room." "Not the guest room. Your room." That first evening went better than I dared to hope. My mother had clearly put thought into every interaction. She asked Lily to help set the table, and when my daughter accidentally dropped a fork, my mother simply said, "Oops, let's get another one." At dinner, she directed questions to Lily, listened to her answers, and followed up with genuine interest. When Lily wanted to tell a long, rambling story about her friend at daycare, my mother sat patiently through every detail. And then Emma's mommy picked us both up and we got ice cream, and mine was chocolate, and Emma's was strawberry, but I let her try mine, and she let me try hers, and strawberry is pretty good, but chocolate is still my favorite. "Chocolate is an excellent choice," my mother said seriously. "It's my favorite too." After dinner, they worked on a 100-piece puzzle together at the kitchen table. I watched from the living room, marveling at my mother's patience, as Lily struggled with pieces that clearly didn't fit but needed to try anyway. "This piece looks like it might go here," my mother would suggest gently, never taking over, always letting Lily make the discoveries herself. "Grandma, you're really good at puzzles," Lily declared. "Well, I've had lots of practice, but you're learning very quickly." That night, as I tucked Lily into her transformed room, she was practically glowing with happiness. "Mommy, I think Grandma learned how to be happy," she said. What makes you think that? She smiles more, and she listens to my stories all the way to the end. And she said she wants to make cookies with me tomorrow. How do you feel about that? Excited. I think she really likes me now. The next day, New Year's Eve, was even better. My mother had purchased ingredients for sugar cookies, along with an assortment of cookie cutters and colored frosting. She'd even bought a small apron with Little Chef embroidered on the front. "This is for you," she told Lily, tying the apron around her small waist. Every good baker needs the right equipment. They spent the entire morning baking. I stayed nearby, officially to help, but really to witness this transformation. My mother, who had once criticized Lily for looking at toys in a store, now calmly cleaned up flour that had been scattered across the counter, laughing when Lily accidentally got frosting in her hair. "Cooking is supposed to be messy," she told Lily. "That's how you know you're having fun." When Lily dropped an entire bottle of sprinkles, covering the floor in tiny rainbow circles, I held my breath, but my mother just smiled. "Well, that's going to make the floor very colorful. Should we clean it up together and then add sprinkles to our cookies the regular way?" "I'm sorry, Grandma. I didn't mean to spill them." "Of course you didn't, sweetheart. Accidents happen. That's what cleaning supplies are for." As I watched them work together, I realized my mother wasn't just tolerating Lily's presence. She was genuinely enjoying it. She laughed at my daughter's jokes, marveled at her creativity with the cookie decorating, and listened with complete attention when Lily explained her elaborate plans for each cookie. "This one is for you, Grandma," Lily said, holding up a star-shaped cookie covered in gold frosting. "It's because you're special." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "It's the most beautiful cookie I've ever seen," she said. "I'm going to treasure it." That afternoon, while Lily napped, my mother and I had our first real conversation in years. "Thank you," I said simply. "For what?" "For changing, for trying, for seeing what an amazing little girl she is." My mother was quiet for a moment. "I almost missed it," she said finally. "I almost missed knowing her entirely because I was so afraid of letting her matter to me." "What changed your mind?" "Sitting alone on Christmas Eve, realizing that my fear of being hurt had actually guaranteed that I would be hurt. I chose isolation over love, and it left me with nothing." She looked toward the living room where Lily was curled up on the couch with a blanket and her new favorite book. "I don't want to miss any more of her life, Rachel. I want to be the grandmother she deserves. I want to be better than I was as a mother. You were doing your best then, Mom. We all do our best with what we know at the time. Maybe. But now I know better, so I can do better." That evening, we celebrated New Year's Eve together. My mother had bought sparkling apple cider for a toast, and at 9 p.m., midnight in New York, but late enough for Lily to feel grown up, we all raised our glasses. "What should we toast to?" my mother asked. "New beginnings," Lily declared. "Perfect," my mother said, looking at both of us with eyes full of love. "To new beginnings, and to family." As we clinked our glasses together, I felt something I'd never experienced before, the sense that we were truly a family, 3 generations connected by love rather than obligation. Later, as my mother helped me tuck Lily into bed, my daughter surprised us both. "Grandma, will you tell me a story?" "What kind of story would you like?" "A story about when my mommy was little like me." My mother sat on the edge of the bed, thinking carefully. "When your mommy was about your age, she loved to paint pictures, but she didn't always paint them on paper." "Where did she paint them?" "Well, one day I found her in the kitchen, and she had painted a beautiful rainbow on the wall." I gasped. "Mom, you were furious about that rainbow." "I was," my mother admitted, "but I shouldn't have been. It was actually quite lovely. I wish I'd taken a picture of it before I painted over it." She turned back to Lily. "Your mommy was creative and curious and brave, just like you are. And sometimes grown-ups forget that those are wonderful things to be. Did you get in trouble for painting on the wall, Mommy?" "I did," I said, "but maybe I shouldn't have. If I painted a rainbow on my wall here, would I get in trouble?" Lily asked hopefully. My mother laughed. Actually laughed. "You know what? If you want to paint a rainbow on your wall, we'll go to the store tomorrow and buy proper wall paint, and we'll paint the most beautiful rainbow ever." Lily's face lit up like Christmas morning. "Really? Really? This is your room, sweetheart. It should reflect who you are." After Lily fell asleep, my mother and I sat in the living room with cups of tea, watching the ball drop on TV. "I have something to tell you," my mother said as midnight approached. "I've been seeing a counselor." I looked at her in surprise. "Really? Since the week after Christmas, I realized I needed help learning how how to be different, how to love without fear. How's it going? It's hard work. I've spent 62 years building walls, and taking them down isn't easy, but it's worth it. She smiled at me. Today was the best day I've had in years. For me too, Mom. As the clock struck midnight, my mother hugged me tight. I love you, Rachel. I've always loved you, even when I didn't know how to show it properly. I love you too, Mom. We stayed for 3 more days, and each day was better than the last. My mother and Lily painted that rainbow on the bedroom wall, and it was magnificent, stretching across one entire wall in bright, cheerful colors. They built elaborate dollhouse scenarios together, read books, and took walks around the neighborhood where my mother proudly introduced Lily to everyone they met. "This is my granddaughter," she would say, and the pride in her voice was unmistakable. On our last day, my mother gave Lily a photo album. "This is for pictures of us," she explained, "so we can remember all our good times together." The first page already had a photo, a picture of the 3 of us decorating cookies, all of us covered in flour and laughing. "When did you take this?" I asked. I asked Mrs. Henderson to come over and take it. I wanted to remember everything about that day. As we packed our bags to leave, I wasn't sad anymore. Instead of endings, this felt like beginnings. "Mom, when can we come back, Mommy?" Lily asked as we loaded the car. "Soon, baby, very soon." My mother hugged us both goodbye, and this time, her embrace was warm and real and full of love. "I'll call tonight," she promised Lily. "I want to hear about your first day back at daycare, and I'll tell you if we make any new dollhouse families." 6 months later, as I write this story, my mother is a regular part of our lives. She visits Portland once a month, and we go to Salem just as often. She's learned to text so she can send Lily pictures throughout the day. She's become the warm, loving grandmother I always hoped she could be. More importantly, she's become the mother I always needed too. Last week, Lily asked if Grandma could come to her kindergarten graduation. When I called to invite her, my mother cried with joy. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," she said. "I have so much lost time to make up for. But here's what I've learned. It's never too late to start over. It's never too late to choose love over fear, connection over control, warmth over walls." My mother spent Christmas Eve alone at a table set for guests who never came, and it broke her open in the most necessary way. Sometimes we have to lose everything to find what really matters. Now, when people ask me about my mother, I tell them she's the woman who learned to love again at 62. She's the grandmother who paints rainbows on bedroom walls and makes cookies shaped like stars. She's the person who proves that families can heal, hearts can change, and love really can win in the end. And every time I see her with Lily, really see them together, laughing and creating and just enjoying each other's company, I remember that the best stories aren't the ones where everything starts perfectly. They're the ones where broken things get mended, where lost people find their way home, and where love gets a second chance to bloom.